called Catch the Mice, and I'm here to ask you that one question: is it too late to jump into virtual events? And the answer is yes. And that's it. Thank you very much. That's the end of the speech. I'm off. No, it definitely is not too late to jump into virtual events. I want to give you a bit of a background about me and what I'm about. So who is Stuart Mitchell? And why am I the virtual events guy? Well, this is me. This is me. I studied at Surrey University, and I studied electronic engineering. That was my education, and that's what I did most at university, having a drink and having a party. To be perfectly honest, electronic engineering was definitely not for me. I was not clever enough to do the electronics, but all my friends were on the hotel and catering course, and I ended up in events. I was at the right place at the right time. And basically, I was general manager of the Oval Cricket Ground at 22. I was part of the senior management team at Wembley Stadium in my mid-20s. And by the end of my 20s, I'd been headhunted to run Manchester Central, which at the time was called GMEX, so a big exhibition centre in Manchester. And that's where I currently reside, up in Manchester. So basically, I was an eventer all through my 20s, delivering hands-on events, and actually doing the do rather than selling the sell. And I didn't end up in electronic engineering. In my 30s, I was also doing very well, and my career progressed, and I moved out of hands-on operations to become a National Ops Director for a school meals division of the same company, which was great fun, very different, running a turnover of about 70 million for Compass Group. And then along came a storm, and I clashed swords with this fellow, Mr. Jamie Oliver, on national television. If anyone saw the school meals show that he did way back about 10 years ago, Jamie and I were not bestest friends, let's put it that way. We clashed because I was with a big corporate machine that was selling school meals to kids. Anyway, that caused a bit of a storm in my career, and I actually ended up taking redundancy about a year after that because the turnover dropped quite dramatically. And I thought, what on earth can I do? So I reinvented myself, and having used all my contacts that I used to work with at the Oval Cricket Ground, Lord's Cricket Ground, etc., and I set up an agency, a representation agency, working with privately owned hotels, private islands, really lovely, amazing boutique properties all over the world. And I promoted them to the corporate market. So for about a decade, I wooed the corporate events market, event buyers, group organisers, corporate event planners, and the MICE industry. And I promoted these beautiful products all over the place. And then came along another storm in the shape of the pandemic. And everything stopped. Travel stopped, my business stopped, or I lost pretty much all those contracts. And like everyone else, I sat at home thinking, what on earth can I do? And so that's where I went back to my roots and started thinking about what I can actually do. And I had a up the ladder moment. I was actually up a ladder, decorating my office, as most people did when they were home during the lockdown. And I thought, I'm going to do something constructive and actually help the industry that I've worked in for 20 odd years. And I started working with Helen, who is here today. If you ever anyone meets Helen Moon, Helen Moon is the founder of Eventwell, which is our social enterprise dedicated to kind of mental health and well-being within the industry. Because I was speaking to a lot of these event organisers that I'd met over the last 20 years to see what they were doing, all of them were in the same boat as me. They'd either closed their business down, they'd cut their overheads, they'd been in a really challenging position. And there was a lot of mental health challenges that were going on with people that were struggling both financially and also emotionally about losing their business. So I also kept an eye on the market because I have another wing of my business, which is a consultancy business, and I wanted to find out what the market was doing. And this is really my impression of what has happened in the market in the last 2 years. So pre-COVID, can't really see that on that screen, but pre-COVID, the top sector were full-service companies. These were the likes of Jack Morton, the likes of DRP, big, full international global companies that were technically competent, had the creative design elements, were full-service industries. They didn't engage me hugely because my business was predominantly small, boutique, really small, niche, exclusive use properties. So I was only getting about 10% of my business from them. Then there was another market out there that were the mass bookers, the people that worked with Radisson, the Hiltons, the Hyatts of this world, those big corporate booking engines that were doing business travel. Got a little bit of business from them. But most of my business came from the little niche, small micro agencies. Those agencies that knew their customers really well, that knew their client base really well, what they wanted, but also understood what boutique hotels and service looked like. So 5-star service, some small little boutique hotels and things like that. And that's where 60% of my business came from. And those were probably the people that were hit most hard by this industry, by the pandemic. So now we're looking at a semi-pandemic. We're not quite out of it by any stretch of the imagination. But over the last 18 months, this is what's happened. Those full-service agencies, those agencies that have been around for a long time, that already had their toe in the virtual world, the technical world, the digital world, the studio world, that had big in-house studios that produced pop-up studios, those have capitalised on the opportunities that were out there during the pandemic. Those corporate machines that still needed to communicate with their client base went to those that had experience in this sector, and they've grown dramatically. Those people that concentrated on business travel, gone. That lost a lot of their business. They're still in the transition stage of reconsidering what they're going to do. Is business travel going to come back? Are the corporate bookings going to come back? The travel bookings, the hotel bookings, and those have lost a bit of business as well. But these people are the little small people that have had the hardest time. A lot of people that were sole traders, a lot of people that were maybe had 1 or 2 employees. They've been crucified by the pandemic, and those are the people that I've been speaking to in the last 18 months to see what they're doing. And most of them have mothballed themselves, to be perfectly honest. They hadn't had the commercial, not drive, that's the wrong thing to say, but they didn't have the commercial opportunities that the big boys had. So they hadn't actually still dipped their toe in this virtual market. The other thing which I felt was totally unjust by a lot of the virtual events platforms was to charge a massive annual fee to the small trader, the small operator, to charge a 60, 70, 80,000 pound annual fee, which a lot of the virtual platforms did right at the beginning, to the small agencies, when they had no idea how much revenue and return on investment they were going to get, was unjust. When I had the up the ladder moment, I was approached by a number of those, and they didn't understand our industry, and I refused to work with them, to be honest. I wanted to work with 2 agencies or 2 virtual platforms that did genuinely understand and empathise with the pain that our industry was going through, because I was going through it as well. So the status of what each of these 3 sectors is in is the full service teams, some of which are here today, are in growth mode. They're capitalising on it. Those that have had a business model which is in the business travel sector are in pain and in transition. And I've got to say, those people that are the boutique agencies, hi Sam, are having pain and actually having a bit of a tough time. I would actually probably put them in a red scenario. So that's where we are at the moment. We've seen a lot of collaboration over the last 18 months, and I think collaboration is the word. However, I'm also seeing a lot of, quite frankly, brutal shark eat shark competition at the moment, and it's every man, woman, child events platform for themselves. And I have a feeling that will continue, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to think collaboration is going to be with us, but there is a lot of shark eat shark. There's a lot of business that's been taken from these small agencies because, as I said, some of the small guys have mothballed themselves. their client base has been picked off by the big boys. And as much as they are currently trading and currently enjoying the live market that's coming back, a lot of the digital side has moved already to other agencies. And I have a concern that that may well continue, and eventually the larger agencies will say, right, we'll keep you for everything. There we are. So the question is it too late to join the virtual events market? Are there any pickings to be had? Is the party over? And as I said, 100% not. And the reason being, I've done a lot of research about what is really happening in the market. And I've got lots of statistics here. But the key one is that if you look at some of the event organisers that are out there, 25% of the event organisers that were out there pre-pandemic, and actually some of the smaller guys that have set up on their own who were made redundant, have actually not conducted a single virtual event. They may have done some Zoom and some Teams events, but not used a virtual events platform. And it is petrifying for those of you. Just show of hands, has anyone not done a virtual event here? No. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest, because we are in a tech show, so I'd have expected you to do some virtual events. But there are a lot of event organisers that haven't done any virtual events yet. 50% of agencies confirmed that they'd be willing to collaborate with people, and I think that's really, really useful because you can bring the event management skills in alongside your tech skills with some tech providers. So I am seeing a lot of that, especially with AV companies and that sort of thing. But looking at next year, a lot of people still haven't actually delivered any live events this year, and next year Q1, Q2 is also looking pretty slim in terms of live events because not necessarily domestically they're still happening, but the international live events that I'm seeing are very, very nervous about what will actually happen. And a lot of people have been using virtual as a backup as opposed to a part of the overall event strategy. So they've had an event cancelled by Boris saying we're back into lockdown, or we can't have more than 50 people in a room, or whatever the numbers are at that particular moment in time, and they've had to use virtual as a backup and have cancelled the live event and have used virtual as a backup. Is that the right thing to do? 100% no. It's an extraordinarily costly exercise. It's an extraordinarily stupid way about going about business, and you cannot get out your marketing out there to support your digital event strategy. The next slide is a bit of a complicated one. It's a bit of a weird pyramid as I see it, how the events industry is currently mapped out. And there is a blatant plug here. When I said I had my up the ladder moment, I wanted to work with two agencies or two virtual events platforms which were non-competing and understood our industry. And I worked with Intellego, and I'm proud to say I actually worked with VI Events, which last night won Best Exhibition Tech Provider, and I was over the moon. And if anyone was here, I made a bit of an idiot myself on stage last night, screaming and shouting about it. But it was a really good evening, and if I sound a bit hoarse, there was a lot of celebrations that went on. So there's a blatant plug on both those. If you want to come and see me, I'm just around the corner on stand 4101. So, the pyramid. About 50% of the market is currently still using Zoom and simple platforms like Zoom and Teams. And that's fine. They do what they do, and they do it very, very well, and are actually getting better at it, and actually think they could be a contender in the virtual market long term at a reasonable price. But when you start looking at Zoom licenses and other licenses that tie in with them, they do start adding up. They also don't have the analytic capability that a lot of the professional platforms that have hit the market over the last 18 months have. Then we have the graphical platforms, which if you've used Teams and you've used Zoom, as most people can use, they're quite easy to navigate, they're quite intuitive, some are better than others. Intellego, sorry, I didn't say that. Some are better than others, and you can use them relatively easily. A lot of them have annual licenses and charge for a per user or per registration cost. Be wary of that. I actually think it's wrong to charge for registrations. I think it should be more on a per user, actual user basis, but that's another personal little niggle of mine. But do watch out for that. That's one take home if you're organising a virtual event. That's about 25% of the market. Then we have the 3D graphics, and I think some of the 3D graphical models are, there's ones which look visually impressive and have an external view, and there are other ones where you actually become a bit of an avatar within a 3D environment. And those are very, very useful tools to be able to model almost make an in-person event become real. So if you've got an event which happens in London at a particular hotel every year that you can't do for any reason, you could model that particular environment and broadcast it out to people who wouldn't be able to join the event because of travel restrictions or whatever. And then finally, you have the little top of the tree, and that is the bespoke virtual platform or virtual showcase. And that's very expensive, very boutique, very niche. It's only about 5% of the market, and it is extraordinarily expensive. But the value of this market is huge. And if we look at the UK market, it's probably well over 120 million pounds worth of business. And if you haven't jumped into that yet, it's worth having a slice of that economic and commercial pie. I'm not going to talk about hybrid in a huge amount of detail, but I do have my personal thoughts on hybrid. It seems to be kicked around as the buzzword at the moment, and I actually don't think hybrid works. There's a statement and a half. I think those people that are doing hybrid at the moment, unless you've got pots of money to throw at it and have two different teams, a virtual team and a live team, then you do it really badly. I've seen some really poorly operated hybrid events. I know that there are really good ones out there that have got spent a lot of money on it, but personally, unless you do it well, I don't think it's worth doing. Today we are, I'm just saying hello to our virtual friends through the camera, and at the moment you're watching me, and it may well be that we want to edit that down into, you want my kind of top takeaways, and you may want to watch that view on demand, but realistic, what I've been waffling on for half an hour, 20 minutes, you actually might want in 5 minutes. And I think that will make it easier for people to view hybrid at a later stage. My personal view is do a really good in-person event, film it, edit it, chunk it down to bite-sized slices, and then repurpose it in a virtual environment, properly promoted virtual environment, to a significantly higher volume of attendees. Potentially bring in your speakers that were actually at the event, at the live event, get Q&As, dig deeper into it, do a deeper dive into those presentations and get interaction from the audience. I'll give you a little example. I was lucky enough, one of my platforms sponsored the TV and Radio Awards, the Trick Awards, in person in London about 5-6 weeks ago. And I was actually in the environment with all those DZ-listed celebrities and Piers Morgan and all that sort of stuff, with great music, great champagne, great fun. And I was promoting the virtual elements of it. And it felt strange to be in this lovely live environment, which is unusual for us to be in person. And yet I was on my phone. It was almost like having the phone at the dinner table. I wasn't speaking to people and interacting with people in the live environment. I was trying to keep control and message people in the virtual environment. And it felt weird to be missing out what was live happening around me whilst I'm trying to engage with my virtual audience. And I think, if I'm being honest, we're at Event Tech Live today. We are live and virtual. And it's very difficult from a stand perspective to organise your meetings on the stand and also organise your meetings in a virtual environment. I can't do both. I'm almost wondering if even in the exhibition centre, in an exhibition environment, you should actually have the live event and maybe the exhibition the week later, the virtual exhibition later. And it's a question which I'd pose to events and exhibition organisers. Does it work running two in parallel? And maybe I am off-centre, but I think I'm maybe speaking for a lot of people. I've spoken to some people offline about it, and no one wants to publicly say that, but I think it should be held at a different time to the actual in-person live event. And I haven't even touched on this, the big topic at the moment, sustainability. Is virtual the right thing to do? I think it is. I've travelled all over the world. I flew to meetings in Berlin for for a half an hour meeting to go and speak at an event or attend an event. I do think that is a need for in-person, but I also think that virtual will assist us with the amount of travelling we do. As a salesperson, I'm always on the road, or was always on the road, and I'd leave my home in the dark at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive down to an event in Milton Keynes or wherever it was. Zoom replaces that. I can do quadruple the amount of meetings, but I also understand there is need to meet people over coffee, meet people in the bar, have a meal, do all of the sort of stuff that us humans do, but we do need to save the planet as well. I'm not even going to go on to the rest of the sustainability question, but it's something which we should, as an events industry, consider. And finally, is there opportunity ahead? Commercially, yes. Take-homes, quickly, don't use virtual as a backup. Use virtual as a quiver in your armory. Bring it out when you need it. I would say at the moment, probably in terms of footfall, it's going to be at least 70% of your footfall is going to be virtual. But in terms of numbers, probably 10%, 15% of your events are going to be virtual compared to in person next year. I think everyone needs a virtual event solution. And if anyone needs any hand-holding to lead them in that direction, I'm more than happy to help. My phone is always on. My door is always open. I will always talk to people on LinkedIn. Please connect with me, Stuart Mitchell, on LinkedIn. I will give you free advice and guidance to try and help, because I do want to see our sector bounce back and bounce back better. Are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah, are there? I mean, there's nothing on the website. I don't know if did they get the instructions to join? Okay. Anyone want to throw a question out using their human mouth? I like talking about the hybrid stuff because I saw this presentation yesterday and I initially just disagreed with you, but I've been thinking about it since, and yeah, you're pretty right. Unless there's a lot of money involved, it's tough to get it right. And I think the Eventech are probably doing it very well because they've got amazing sponsors.
Absolutely.
But you're right. There's not necessarily a need for everyone to be seeing it live if it can be condensed, because I think there's a rule, virtual events should be a third of the length of an in-person event. So there is a lot of stuff that could be chopped down and shared later. But there was a great conversation last night with a guy from Manchester Convention, and he did say that there's some advantages because they get backstage access if they're watching now. They get to see the post-event interviews that you don't get live, and it's really nice to give them, people who can't be there, give them some stuff that we don't get here.
100%. We've got a lot to learn from other industries.
Yeah.
You look at
Glastonbury does it well.
Absolutely. You look at even I'm a celebrity. I hate it, but those backstage chats seem to be almost better than the show itself. Yeah. And we can do that. The gaming industry is another industry which we should learn from, being able to use multitask and use the Twitch streams and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Loads to introduce to learn.
Yeah, I think, but the financials part has to be taken into consideration. And yesterday someone said this, and I don't know why it never occurred to me, but he said hybrid events have to be treated as two separate events.
Totally.
Which I'd never occurred to me that they're two totally different beasts that need to work together, but they are two completely different beasts.
Yeah, because why? I'm not going to say waste your time. That's the wrong thing to say. Miss out on the personal interaction because we get so little of it. It seems daft to be sitting with a screen when you're actually interacting with a human. It just feels odd to me. Yeah. And it wasn't until that moment where I was at that TV Awards where I thought I'm missing this really special moment.
Yeah.
And chatting with people.
It's already hard enough to be present at live events. There's a lot going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got another question up.
Yeah. I'm not allowed to give you this, unfortunately. The question is, what's the take on events that were live or in person that are cancelled and gone virtual, obviously last year, and where they're going now with that same event? Fully online. Yeah.
Good question. Let's take let's take something which we probably all know, Glastonbury. Glastonbury is a good example. I've done, for the last 25 years, I've volunteered at Glastonbury. I run an area of Glastonbury for a charity. It's a bit of a busman's holiday for me, but it's fun. And watching it on television, quite frankly, is not Glastonbury. You know, the smell of the burgers, you know, the dancing, the mud, that is Glastonbury. Physically being there is Glastonbury. The smell, the aroma, the sights, the mental people you meet, it's just mad off the scale. Watching on television, God, no, that's not Glastonbury. And I know that I promote virtual events. I've got 2 platforms, but I also have a live element of my business, and I want to get back to live. So it's a means to an end, and those in-person events have to happen without question. We're engaging humans. We need human contact.
Wasn't there a huge issue with getting your virtual ticket to the Glastonbury this year or something?
Don't even get me on
something
that.
Crashed or something.
I was very annoyed on LinkedIn and on social about that, because there's no excuse for that.
No.
That is...
Not when you're Glastonbury.
I'm going to say that is incompetent. Yeah. But that's my personal view.
Hey, there is a question on the app. Okay. Don't wrap that up.
Did I answer your question? Because I think some events, let's say Mobile World Congress, when it first went pop and it had to be cancelled, they went live last year after year 1, and went virtual. That had to happen. I think this year they'll go back to it being a hybrid model. And I think sometimes it's got to be virtual out of necessity, but I think you'll always need a live element.
But the money you save on just getting some world-class videographers and editors to capture it all, put it together a week later, and you get a cleaner product in the end, and no chance of things going wrong. And
also, you're absolutely right, it can be watched on view on demand or listened to on the train, on the commute in, whenever
I agree. I didn't agree yesterday. You've won me over. I'm in. This is a great question. What virtual networking strategies have you found to be successful without being creepy?
Ooh. Oh my goodness.
Because I don't know any.
No, I don't. No, you're right. That's a really good question.
It's a good question.
You know what? Can I find out who actually sent that?
We don't know. Oh, you know. Okay.
Okay, we've got someone. I'm going to come back to you on that one, because I'm going to have to have a think on that one. I'm going to park that one for the time being. Sorry, that's a real get-out-of-jail-free card.
That's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
No one's figured out how to just virtually walk up to someone and say, you know what?
You know what? I'm in sales. I can talk to anyone. I can dance around and be a bit of an idiot sometimes, but I can talk to anyone, whether it's a CEO or any at any level, and that's quite difficult for a lot of people. Not me, because I'm just me. But I don't mind anyone approaching me on any social network to ask a question, but I'm quite open with that. I'm going to thank someone yesterday, somebody on LinkedIn. I'm going to say Chloe, I think it was. Yes, it was Chloe, who dropped me a note on LinkedIn following yesterday's talk, saying this is not a creepy, crawly suck up. But I just wanted to say you really inspired me for yesterday's talk, which was really appreciated. And it almost was an apologetic, creepy element. Am I stalking you? Who dropped me a note on LinkedIn. So I thank you for that, Chloe. Thank you very much.
I love that. I love that. Well, the LinkedIn's the king of the creepiness, because you get that who viewed your profile, and then you do a little bit of viewing of each other's profile.
Yeah, indeed.
I love LinkedIn. Okay, we've gone over, but please give it up one more time for Stuart from Catch the Mice.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.
And when's the next one on this stage? I think we've got a bit of a break now. Let me just check. Should have probably prepared, but where are we?
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, mate. That was great.
Thanks, guys. If anyone wants to
come
over and see us,
15 minutes.
Around the corner.
Yeah, he's just around the corner. Yep, 15 minutes. What the bleep is normal? From Ellis Davis from Endless Events. That's at 12 minutes at midday. See you then.
Got a card there for you.